Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay in the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
How's it going, Knight fans? This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. I'm Jeff Sharon, along with Eric Lopez. What's up, Elo?
Doing well. It's good to be here talking bowl season.
It is happening, man. We've got the Army-Navy game is this Saturday, and then after that, it's bowl time, December 17th, and UCF is going to a bowl game, and they're going to be staying right at home in the Cure Bowl. We'll be touching upon that during the show. And we have a guest for this show, too. We have Alan Gooch. You may know him as a former player, former coach at UCF. Also, at one time was the head of the Golden Knights Club. He is now the CEO of the Autonation Cure Bowl, presented by Florida Hospital, and also the executive director of the Orlando Sports Foundation. And he is the guy who puts this game together, along with a cast of several people who are obviously extremely hardworking, trying to put together a bowl game. That they've worked for so long. I actually caught up with Alan earlier tonight. We're recording this on Wednesday night, December the 7th, and Alan Gooch is always very gracious, and we've got that conversation for you coming up. We'll also be talking about UCF's new men's soccer head coach, Scott Calabrese, coming up from Florida International. And we'll be talking about men's and women's basketball continuing their hot starts with some big wins over this past weekend. So a reminder, you can follow our podcast at UCF_Banneret. You can subscribe via iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Don't forget to look us up on Facebook at Black and Gold Banneret, and also on the web at blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you can sign up for email newsletters, where anything new that comes out goes right to your email inbox. Super easy sign up right there on the homepage. You can see all of our podcasts there via SoundCloud. It's great stuff. So don't be afraid to reach out to me at Jeff_Sharon on Twitter, and Eric at Eric Lopez Elo. And with that, let's get started. So, Eric, UCF's going to a bowl game at 6-6, and they're staying right here in town. UCF's first appearance in the Autonation Cure Bowl, which will be played at Camping World Stadium on Saturday, December 17th. 5:30 p.m. The game will be televised on CBS Sports Network, but if you're a UCF fan, you're in town, you should be coming to the game. And they will play the Arkansas State Red Wolves out of the Sun Belt Conference. Don't laugh. This team is very good. They won a share of the Sun Belt Conference this year, along with Appalachian State. 7-5 was the Red Wolves' record this year, but 7-1 in the conference. And, by the way, they won the share of the conference, Elo, by virtue of not playing Appalachian State this season. That's how it kind of worked out that way. But nonetheless, this is a program that has made some noise over the past few years. Their head coach is Blake Anderson in his third year. He's 23-15 with the Red Wolves. And you might know Arkansas State from this. You know, the last Anderson's predecessors prior to 2014. Get a load of this murderer's row of coaches that have been through Arkansas State. By the way, interesting names here. Who have gone through Jonesboro, Arkansas, which is the location of the school. Hugh Freeze in 2011, who gave way to Gus Malzahn in 2012. Who gave way to Brian Harsin, who's the head coach at Boise State, in 2013. Each of those three guys were one and done. And Anderson came in, and Arkansas State was sick and tired of the one and done thing, so they gave him a 5-year contract with a massive buyout in the first 2 years to try and keep him there. $3 million buyout for the first 2 years, $2 million the third and fourth years, and $1 million in the final year. And Anderson's salary, by the way, is $700,000. So he's going to be sticking around for a little bit, but he's done a pretty good job. Arkansas State has been to a bowl game each year since 2011. Even going back to, they've been to the GoDaddy Bowl 4 times in 11, 12, 13, and 14. New Orleans Bowl last year where they lost to Louisiana Tech. And this year they're playing UCF in the Cure Bowl, their first trip to the Cure Bowl as well. So my point is, Eric Lopez, is that this may not necessarily be the cakewalk that everyone thinks it's going to be, because Arkansas State's a pretty good program, have been for a while in the Sun Belt. They're not afraid of playing teams like UCF. So this, you got a 7-5 team in Arkansas State against 6-6 UCF. This will be a bit of a challenge for the Knights, don't you think?
I do. Part of it, for Arkansas State, they're going to be excited to be here in Orlando. They're going to be excited, I think, to play UCF. And I think they'll use the fact that pretty much I think everybody, and outside national media and people that in the area is probably going to be picking UCF, right? And I think Arkansas State will really benefit from that. I think, so much focus on this bowl game is going to be about how many UCF fans come to this game. But don't you feel that Arkansas State fans will come out to Orlando, right? I mean, why not? If you're living, if you're in Arkansas, Jonesboro, Arkansas, hey, get a weekend trip to Orlando out of this and play a football.
Trip to Orlando, yeah. Not only that, good hospitality, not that long of a trip. I mean, everyone knows how to drive to Disney World. And if you're in Jonesboro, Arkansas, the other thing is too, and this is, I think this is the advantage of this game. You're getting this game out of the way a week before Christmas on the weekend.
Right, so no distractions, no holiday distractions, right?
So you're driving down, Friday night or Friday afternoon, Friday night from Arkansas, get into town, get in your hotel room. Game's at 5:30 on Saturday. Hang around, go to Disney, and then maybe you go to Disney a day of the game or whatever. And then Sunday you pack up and you go home, and you're back in time for the week, and you don't have to burn any vacation time prior to Christmas.
Well, and what's interesting about this game that I like? Arkansas State just played this weekend. They played and beat Texas State.
Yeah.
UCF played the week before that. In other words, there's not a long layoff. Sometimes, and I think we have seen sometimes the best bowl games that turn out, exciting bowl games as far as well played and excitement are the earlier games because they're still in routine. They're still in a routine as opposed to waiting 30 days or 35, a month to, basically get ready for a game where
like if you're in the Big Ten and then you're waiting until New Year's Day, right?
Right, because sometimes it's almost like you have a different team. It's almost like you're starting over. So I think this will be a pretty crisp game, like a well-played game, because I think both teams are still in season mode. They're not going to take a time off, like you mentioned. They're not going to be, holidays with families and stuff, and then all of a sudden you're starting over. And I think that's the interesting thing about it. And from a UCF perspective, you get to stay here. And I think, to me, the focus and the excitement is the fact UCF's going to be playing at the stadium that was formerly known as the Citrus Bowl, a place that they called home for a very long time. And they haven't played a game there, I believe, 10 years. I was at the last game they played there. It was against UAB. It was senior day in 2006.
Yep.
In November. And so that will be
USA at the time, too.
Yeah, that was the second year in Conference USA. I remember that game. That was a game that Kyle Israel played the majority of the game at quarterback. Stephen Moffitt had lost his job during that year. I think he played a series or two that game as a senior. But that was a lot of memories that I think it'll be interesting for people like you and me and a lot of UCF fans that actually went to games over there. There's a lot of young people that, have never been to a UCF game in that stadium, believe it or not. So, and I've run into them. It's just kind of funny.
I know.
So it's unique. I've obviously been to that stadium a lot recently as the ACC championship game. So But it'll be interesting to see UCF play there again, even though obviously the stadium looks different now than it did obviously 10 years ago. But I wonder, Jeff, what the feelings will be like on game day when UCF's fans are like parking there and thinking, wow, I used to do this back in the day.
Well, it will be UCF's first game at the Citrus Bowl, Camping World Stadium, in that facility downtown, since obviously they did the major renovations to the lower bowl. Quick note on the spread: UCF is a 6.5-point favorite. I thought this was interesting, though, Eric. 60% of the early money was on Arkansas State. So that tells me that some of the sharps out in Vegas, over-under, by the way, 49, the sharps out in Vegas are really liking that Arkansas State plus a touchdown number right now. But in terms of raw numbers in the matchups, UCF and Arkansas State, the Red Wolves haven't been exactly – they've sort of been a little bit middling in terms of what they've been able to do so far this season. Quarterback for them is a young guy by the name of Justice Hansen, who's been pretty good this year. But Hansen's thrown for 2,500 plus yards this year. They have a leading rusher in Warren Wand, who's rushed for 867, but they're not exactly lighting the world on fire here in terms of what their matchups have been. At least not in terms of what they maybe used to do back in the day. But nonetheless, I think this will be a little bit of a challenge for UCF. Do you think that I think what you were trying to say earlier, though, about the break is teams are going to be fresh, recovered from injuries, healthy, but not rusty. I think that's sort of the balance that we're looking at. And to be honest with you, I think UCF really needs this time to get healthy again, don't you?
Absolutely. I think Scott Frost said so. I was there after the USF game, and I think in particular in the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of kids that were just worn out by the end of the year. I think he was talking about how certain players, looked like hadn't had sleep in a long time. So, yeah, I think this time off was good for everybody. But at the same time, it's not a lengthy time off to the point where, you almost have to reestablish everything you were doing. So you get a couple weeks of practice, and it's almost like an extension of the season, and you want to finish on a positive note and build towards next year. And I think that's the exciting thing. If you're the players, you want to send the seniors off on a good note with a win. Plus, from a coaching staff standpoint, you want those young players to get the extra reps for next year as well. So that's what really this bowl games are all about.
Yeah, note on Arkansas State, they're actually pretty hot coming into this game. They've won, they lost their first 4 games all out of conference. And then they won 7 of their last 8. Their only loss was a 5-point loss at Louisiana Lafayette back on November the 26th. But they're coming off, like you said, that win against Texas State. By the way, of those, they've won of their last 5 games, 4 of them have been on the road. They've only lost 1 of those games. So this team has been they've kind of been road warriors this year, the Red Wolves. Here is Scott Frost discussing the upcoming game against Arkansas State.
Yeah, bowl games are exciting no matter where they are and which game they are. I think the Cure Bowl stands for something maybe a little more than most. To be a bowl that helps raise awareness and money for breast cancer. That's as good a cause as you can find. So I think it's a good marriage to give us a chance to play in front of the home fans, and we're looking forward to an exciting game. Well, this team was coming off an 0-12 season, and for them to rally and come together and earn a chance to play in a bowl game is pretty special. Would love to see this team end this season on a good note. We'd love to send our seniors out on a good note. So we're going to prepare as hard as we can, and the things this team has accomplished have been great, but hopefully we can accomplish a little more.
Yeah, just like you said, Eric. I mean, you're right. I think this team needs a little bit of time to, kind of get healthy, get fresh. But they're not going to be rusty, I think, in time for this game. So, do you think this will be close, or do you think that or do you think that this might be a chance for Mackenzie Milton to really kind of get off the schneid a little bit here?
Well, I think it's a chance for him to kind of finish on a strong note, no question about it. I mean, There's no doubt about that. But you mentioned it, Arkansas State's playing their best football. And again, because they're only going to have a week off, they could still build on that momentum as playing so well down the stretch to win a piece of the Sun Belt Championship. Heck, I'm sure Arkansas State would probably wish they could play this weekend, and ride the momentum. So, I am fascinated to see. And I think this will be not an issue. I think UCF will be motivated to play this football game. I mean, you didn't play in a bowl game last year. You went winless last year in a bowl game. And I think there'll be excitement. I think the players like McKenzie has a chance to take a deep breath, regroup, but then at the same time go get eager to finish here on a strong note and send a statement going into next year. So very interesting.
Easy for him, I'll tell you that, against this Arkansas State team. So, they're not spectacular on defense, but they're pretty good. I was looking through the numbers at them. They're tied for 24th in the country in scoring defense, only giving up about 22 points a game. Although they're offensively, they haven't been overly great. 102nd in the country in rushing offense, 79th in total offense, 391 a game. They're only scoring about 27 points a game. And on offense, they're tied for 99th in the country in first downs and 101st in red zone offense. So their offense has been struggling despite the big quarterback, Justice Hansen, who's only a sophomore, by the way, 6'4", 220 out of Edmond, Oklahoma. He's kind of struggled a little bit this year, but I think he'll probably improve as time goes by. You hope that you don't catch him on a good night because that could be a problem. But I think that it's more importantly here. I think the key for UCF, you really got to. And I think for the UCF fans, too, is they got to treat this like a home game and come out in force. I mean, the nearest bowl game that UCF has played to campus has been the St. Pete Bowl. We've been there 3 times. And that's still, you and I both know how much of a pain that can be to get to. Driving out to St. Pete, playing Tropicana Field. But this game, no excuses. A lot of us have already made this drive before many times to the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah.
So. And you don't have the added excuse of it being a holiday weekend because it's not a holiday weekend. It's the weekend before Christmas. Right. So night fans have to get down there. So what kind of a crowd do you think we're going to get at this? What should we get from this game?
I don't want to say should. I don't feel comfortable. I don't like telling people.
Yeah, you're right.
Because everybody's different. Like there's a lot of different interesting fractions about this. I will, for example, our friends, all right, Andrew Fagley and Trace Trelka, which, by the way, can we just clear the record? They're friends of ours. We're not enemies. We're not. There's something people still like. It was funny
on the message board who are trying to make stop. It's just like the civil conflict. Stop trying to make the rivalry between us and Nightline happen.
Exactly.
It's not a thing. Okay.
No.
We both have been guests on their show before. I haven't had them on our show yet, but I'm going to. There's no question about it. But stop it. Stop trying to make us fight. We're not fighting.
No, we get along. We listen to their podcast. They know they listen to ours, and so don't try to stir things up. So I listened to their most recent episode, and their intern, which unfortunately I slipped in my mind his name, but he's a UCF student that's helping them out on their show. And he talked about he's never been to a UCF game in that stadium. And one of the interesting things is from the student standpoint is – on campus, they don't have to drive to the game. They can just walk to the stadium and stuff like that. So it's going to be tricky to get the students to go to the bowl game from the standpoint of, in some cases, they just may not want to drive all the way to the stadium, or they might be out of town because they just finished with classes and they're going to spend time out of town with family and stuff. So those are some of the challenges that you come with the bowl game. What I'm interested, though, is those UCF people, and since you brought up the message board, right? There's people at UCF fans that don't go to the games currently. Well, because it's far away over there on campus. Well, what's the excuse now?
Right.
So to me,
now it's right in the middle of the whole market.
Correct. So I'm fascinated from that standpoint of how many of those fans come out that maybe don't go to the campus, that maybe just makes it more sense for downtown. Now, I said that you might lose some students because of that, but I also think you're going to gain some UCF fans that I always feel like, and this is not just a UCF thing, I think this is for all sports teams, right? You have a percentage of your fan base that is diehard, that will go to every game no matter what, right? No matter where the place is, they're going to go to every bowl game. They want all the Fed information. So those people are locks. I think you have a second group of fans that are fans, but that maybe pick and choose what games they'll go to.
The three
maybe
ticket pack fans.
Right. They maybe only go to a game here or there. But might, all of a sudden, hey, I'll go to a bowl game right now. It's cool. We'll go to the bowl game. And then you have the third group of fans that maybe don't go to sporting events, but watch the games or listen to Mark Daniels and Gary Parris and Jerry O'Neill on the radio and watch the games on television. And so keep that in mind. I don't like to – I get tired of they only drew this amount of attendance, and this or that. Now, that being said, what we have learned over the years is – all three combinations of the fan bases, usually the bowl game brings out more people than a normal game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say at least it has the potential to, because it's a bowl game. It's kind of the coup de grace. You don't have the excuse of, there's classes. By the way, final exams at UCF end Monday, December the 12th. So the game is the Saturday following that. Yeah. Well,
and that's tricky because, as you know, some students would just want to leave, just get out of town and get away from Orlando for a little while. Now, some people won't. Some people will stay. Some people might come up for the game, and so the students will be fascinating to me. That could be if I expect a quote low turnout, it might be from the students that you normally would get on campus. But like I said, on the convoy. You might get more fans that normally wouldn't even go to a UCF game, but they'll go to a bowl game because, hey, it's cool. It's the it thing. It's a bowl game. I mean, you and I have been to UCF bowl games, and we'll see people there that we haven't seen all year. Like, wait a minute. Yeah, I didn't know you were.
When did you show up?
Right. So that's kind of the fascinating thing about this. Now, the Cure Bowl, I believe, sells only the lower section for now. I think this game, the way I look at it, and I don't have if UCF draws, 40 at home.
Yeah, it's right around there.
If you subtract a few just because of students and stuff, I can see. I think I think this game should be at least in the 30s. Now, I don't know if extra seats will be sold or what, but I think if you could get into the 30s, I think that's more than fair, because I always felt like if you round out the UCF attendance for home games at 40, I think 30 of those 40 are usually diehards or / fans that go to multiple games, like you said. And I think that kind of group will go to a bowl game. The question then is the people that you might miss out on are either A, the students that leave town, or B, the people that normally just don't even come to the games that often, maybe once in a blue moon anyway, and they're probably going to be watching or listening to the game. So I don't really – that's what I kind of think. I know it's a long answer, but I'll be honest, I'm just as fascinated as everybody to see what the turnout is. And, I know this. It'll be – I think it'll be in a very good environment. I think the atmosphere will be great because I think the people that are going to be there are going to be excited.
The weather, well, they don't have the forecast for Saturday just yet. I'm checking on Weather Underground, but the day before should be quite nice. High 74, low of 62, so it should be cool, clear, at least leading up to that. So we'll be waiting on the forecast.
Well, and that's a factor.
That is a key factor. I remember I was at that Capital One Bowl game between LSU and Penn State. That was an absolute disaster, and that was the last, I think, grass surface game that they had at the Citrus Bowl. Remember that?
Yep, I was there.
Oh God, what a catastrophe that game was.
But that's a great point because weather will help if it's good. Plus, remember, walk-up crowds.
Yep.
Also will help. I mean, walk-up crowds also a lot of times will fill last minute because this game as it gets closer, some people that maybe are on the fence are going to get excited, and a lot of people will also go because they know it's the last UCF football game you're going to have, until next year. So. I expect a great crowd. I expect a crowd that will be a little different than maybe normally you would get, as weird as it sounds, at Bright House because of the reasons I've explained. Yeah. And that's what I'm fascinated and unique to. And one of the things I'm looking forward to is seeing kind of what kind of crowd and who's there and who's not been there that is there and stuff like that. It's going to be fun.
You know who else is looking forward to seeing what the crowd's going to be like? Our guest for this show. I talked to him actually a couple hours before we actually started recording this show. He's a UCF guy through and through. Actually played football at UCF as a defensive back, a longtime coach. Has been involved in football really throughout his entire life, and now he's the CEO and executive director, CEO of the Cure Bowl and the executive director of the Orlando Sports Foundation, Alan Gooch. You remember him as a longtime assistant. Well, at least I remember him as a assistant head coach under Mike Kruzek and longtime position coach at UCF. Actually was the interim head coach for a little bit back in 2003, just prior to George O'Leary coming on board. He's done work with the Golden Knights Club. He was even for a time working with the Orlando Predators in their front office. And now he's been in charge of this bowl game, getting it started. And it's in its second year. And now he gets to welcome his alma mater to this bowl game that he's worked so hard to make happen. So here is our interview with the CEO of the Cure Bowl and the executive director of the Orlando Sports Foundation, Alan Gooch. So how are you, Alan?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about the Autonation Cure Bowl and having the UCF Knights hometown team right here with us.
Well, I bet you are. It's your alma mater.
Yeah, happy about that. But we obviously represent two teams. It's I will be happy to present the trophy to either team. Arkansas State, great group. Terry Mohair, who is the athletic director, great guy. I actually happened to be coaching at UCF when he was a defensive back. The only time UCF and Arkansas State have played, it was in Jonesboro, and Willie English had a 252-yard day that day and set a stadium record. It might still be a Russian record for UCF as well. But a great group of people, Arkansas State, and they have a good football team. UCF is going to have its hands full with Arkansas State.
Yeah, I was looking at the matchup this morning, actually. In 1991, I think, was the last and only meeting between these two, and you were there. I guess we'll start with UCF's opponent, Arkansas State, like you mentioned. That program's come a very long way, haven't they?
They have. This is their sixth bowl game in a row.
Right.
And actually, Nate fed me the information. Coach, they're going to be coming back here. And I go, what? Yeah, 1954, Arkansas State played in the Tangerine Bowl. That was the last time they were here, which is great. They get an opportunity to come back. They are a tough football team, strong defense like UCF.
Let's talk about your role with the Cure Bowl. You're the executive director. You've been so active in the Orlando sports community a long time, but let's fill in for the fans. Since you were at UCF last, what have you been doing, and then how did you come to this position with the Cure Bowl? Because I know that I remember when this bowl game was in the works for a long time, back almost a decade ago now at this point, and it finally came to fruition, and now you're in charge of it.
It's been a long road for us, but it actually worked out great. There was an opportunity 6 years ago to do this bowl. Then at that time it was going to be a Sun Belt Conference USA game. And the recession hit.
Right.
FedEx pulled its title sponsorship out of the Orange Bowl. There was nobody looking to title sponsor anything at that time. So we called both conference offices and said, it just doesn't make business sense to go try to put a bowl game together. You just can't do it without title sponsor. And that's that way for everybody. So we tabled it. And when we tabled it, the NCAA put a bowl moratorium on the Football Bowl Association, so no expansion during that time, which was okay for us. We, great group, a great board that stuck together. We raised our money for the Cure Bowl to keep ourselves alive, and the dream alive through a bowling event at the Dowdy Bowling Center on I-Drive, and then when the bowl moratorium was lifted, we were off and running. And we went that way with the Cure, having the cause out front for the Cure Bowl. During all of that period of time, some of the early founding board members, they had family members that were struggling with breast cancer. And so we decided at that time, let's make this thing about that. And we did.
That's
the main reason why I always liked the concept of this game from the very beginning. When I first heard about it, was that it does benefit breast cancer. I lost my grandmother to breast cancer, and tell me about how the proceeds work with the bowl towards the foundation.
Great question. Our charity partner is the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. 91 cents of every dollar they raise goes to research, and we just feel that if you're going to solve this thing, that's what you have to do. Then it's great for the groups that do raise money for awareness, but if you're going to solve this, you got to do it from a research standpoint, and so that's been our focus, and we found a group that worked with our philosophy there. And then we had the opportunity to introduce Dr. Annette Khalid, who's a local researcher here at the UCF Medical Research School, and Breast Cancer Research Foundation took a look at her work with our science officer on our board, Kay Staney, and they were very impressed, and they gave her the first round of funding, and now Dr. Khalid has met all their benchmarks. So last year we raised $1.15 million in our inaugural game, and Dr. Khalid has received $645,000 of that, and she's continuing to meet benchmarks, and she'll hopefully get all of it or solve cancer before it's all over.
That's awesome, and here's hoping that having a local team like UCF playing in the game will go towards that as well. So
it's amazing, right? I mean, if you're out there listening to my voice, if you're a UCF Knight fan or any connection to UCF, for every ticket you buy, you're going to be helping Dr. Khalid's research right there on campus at the UCF Medical Research Center.
Let's talk a little football. How did you guys manage to? I know that you said right after the announcement was made that it took some work, but you got UCF to come to the game. How did that whole process play out? How did it work out?
Well, we were making sure that we were going to position ourselves correctly. A lot of that work was just lobbying with Scott Frost and Danny White. They both had an interest in staying local this year if they could, knowing that you would have an opportunity to have as many fans go to your bowl game as possible. It just makes sense. You don't want to go to a bowl game every year at the hometown, but this year it made a lot of sense. And so we actually were talking about that at the Football Media Day meetings in Newport, Rhode Island. And Danny and I would see each other after each game and go, 5 more, 4 more,
right.
3 more. And I remember when we looked at each other after the Cincy game and just held up fist.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that work was Danny and Scott as well, working on Mike Oresco, the conference commissioner. It is their big asset, and the American Conference is a partner of ours, but they're also a competitor because they own and operate the Miami Beach Bowl.
Right.
And the St. Pete Bowl would like to have had UCF come over again. I mean, UCF has been there 3 times, but they've traveled well every time, and that's what bowls want to see is that good travel. I'd love to have UCF here, every 2 or 3 years, and it's going to be a bowl experience when those guys leave on Wednesday from campus and they check into the Royal Pacific Hotel Resort right there on Universal property. They're not going to go back to campus. They're going to know they're at a bowl.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad. So let's talk a little bit more about you, because I personally think that they should name the Mr. and Mrs. UCF awards after you and Linda, because you came here, you played, and then you coached, and Linda's still around, and here you are still working hard in the community, and you're one of the guys who, for me, being an older fan, listen to me, I came here from 01 to 05, but I still see you as one of the guys that are associated with this campus. So when you see how big UCF football has gotten at this point compared to what you've experienced as a player and then as a coach, is it like mind-boggling? I mean, how do you explain it?
Actually, not mind-boggling. Dr. Colburn and Charles Milliken actually are the ones that sold me on it. Dr. Milliken, when he retired, was always reach for the stars, and he loved he loved UCF football. When after he retired, he would come out. He loved to eat chili, and we would go eat chili at the Steak and Shake on 50, and he would want to talk about football, and he loved it that UCF got a football team. Now, Dr. Colbin obviously was the president when all that started, but when I finished playing, they hired a football coach named Lou Saban.
Yep.
No relation to Nick Saban, but Lou coached O.J. Simpson, and
there's plenty of NFL Films material with him on it.
That's right. And so Lou came in, and when Dr. Colburn introduced him, he said that our goal was to go 1A. And I believed it. I mean, UCF is in a great location, and I started drinking the Kool-Aid then. I said, look, they're making a commitment with Lou Saban. Not long after Lou Saban was named, O.J. Simpson was down in our office, and we were having the O.J. Gatecrasher down at Church Street Station in the Cheyenne Saloon, and it rolled from there. So it wasn't mind-boggling because you knew that it could happen. I saw what had happened with Snellenberger in Miami when he drew the ring around Dade County and said, this is the state of Miami. And we were able to do that here. I mean, I really believe that this was what was going to happen.
So what's now the future for the Cure Bowl? What are your expectations for the bowl game, not just this year, but in the future?
Well, we've got Scott Rose, one of our board members, that's a sponsor of the radio group with Mark, and we've been talking for a long time. We signed a 5-year agreement with the city. We signed a 5-year agreement with both of our conference partners. So our goal is to move up in the pecking order. We were the 40th bowl in, and we couldn't jump over all the contracts that were already there, whether they were primary or secondary. So in some years, we could be the 8th or 9th in the American Conference, depending on how things flow and how many teams are bowl eligible. So that's going to be a little bit of a struggle. But if we'll do a great job of continuing to give these student athletes a great bowl experience for the next 3 years, this year and then 3 more, when those agreements are up, we're going to have some people that are going to want to bump us up. I hear it all the time when I go to the different media day meetings. All the athletic directors are like, I feel like I got to throw some games to get you to a bowl, but I want to come to the Orlando to play in the Cure Bowl. And it does make sense. If you're a coach and you're a player and you're not playing the national championship game, come and get the game over with before Christmas and then go have a great time with your family.
Well, here's to a great weekend coming up. Great weather, which I know you're also concerned about. But, well, at least we always are. Because right before we started talking, we were talking about that Capital One Bowl on New Year's Day where it was a morass in there between Penn State and LSU. And I'm like, man. But we finally have the artificial turf, so that's good. But it should be a good night, and it should be a good football game between 2 football teams, including, okay, now I know you got to be neutral, but...
it's going to be a tough one. I think the Vegas math is 6, right?
6.5. I saw this.
Yep.
I saw this.
So that's the Vegas math. But Arkansas State is a good football team, and I know that they're Scott Frost is going to see that. UCF's offense is young, got a young quarterback, and Arkansas State's defense is the strength of their team. That makes it a tough matchup for UCF.
The original Mr. UCF, Alan Gooch, joining us here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, and our thanks to Alan for his time earlier tonight. We're recording this on Wednesday, December the 7th. And also, hey, I want to give a quick shout-out to Nate Blythe, who works for UCF in the sports communications department, in charge of a number of different sports, and is also the chief media guy for the Autonation Cure Bowl as well. So, and he's been working. I don't know how Nate does it. I'm convinced that he has a twin somewhere that we just don't know about. But he's done a fine job. I wanted to thank him for connecting us with Alan and enabling us to do this interview tonight. And I'm looking forward to seeing all those guys on the 17th. So real quick before we go to break, Eric, I mean, I know you're excited to see the crowd. Are you excited for the game? Is this a good matchup?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, you're facing a hot team that's going to the Sun Belt. It's going to be excited to be there. Yeah, I think compared to what other options are, I think this is a very attractive game. And I'm real quick, I'm happy for Gooch. Worked hard. It's hard to start a bowl game. It's not as easy.
They were working on this bowl game, trying to get this going for like 10 years almost.
Right. And it's hard. You got competition. I think the great thing about this is this game is going to get a lot of attention locally, which I think for a great cause too, which I think is important. Yeah. And having UCF is huge for that bowl game and for Allen. And it'll be a proud day from that standpoint. And, this could be a game I think that helps take that bowl game and take off. Sometimes every bowl game, it seems, always at that when it starts, there's that one game, that marquee moment that's like, okay, now we know what this bowl game's about. And I think the local media coverage will be bigger for this game than obviously it was last year. And I think it will help the coverage of it for future years. And I think that's exciting. So I think it's a win-win for everybody. Don't you think? Yeah. And I'm happy. I was happy that you ended up being correct. I was very concerned that UCF was not going to end up in Orlando, but I think it's a win-win. It's a win for UCF. It's a win for the kids. They get to play an extra game, a bowl game, at home, good weather, but yet at the same time at a different stadium. It's a win for the fans because they don't have to travel. And if anything, we focus so much too on the Orlando fans, but what about the UCF fans from South Florida and fans from Tampa that now
fans
to me they
Jacksonville too, yeah.
Right, that can drive to this game because it's a Saturday. Whereas suppose the Miami Beach Bowl, if that's where UCF would have ended up, would have been a Monday game, which would have been harder for a lot of people.
Yeah,
so
Monday at 2:30 p.m. Yuck. No one would have played that game.
So there's just a lot of positives of this. And the thing that I think is exciting because, with bowl games, you just don't know sometimes that, and you've covered a lot of I covered a lot of bowl games. And we've seen it where there's sometimes in bowl games, one team's interested, the other team's not interested in being there.
Yep.
That's not the case here. You got two teams that I think are to be invested in this game. They're excited to be in this game. And there are two teams that want to win this game. And when you usually have that, you usually get yourself a very good game, an exciting game. So that's what you could hope for. And I think that all parties will be pleased with that.
Two hopes for this game. Number one, I hope that the atmosphere in the stadium, both before and during the game, is just an absolute party. I mean, I want it to be kind of raucous in there a little bit. And then the other thing is I hope that the game is exciting enough where, I think kind of like what you were saying, there's always that early season bowl game that like all of a sudden, it's late on like that Saturday, and then all of a sudden, Twitter starts lighting up with, hey, you guys watching this crazy game that's going on? And the game will be on CBS Sports Network. It'll be Carter Blackburn, Aaron Taylor doing the game. But, all of a sudden everyone's like, hey, you watching this game? I mean, can you believe what's going on? It's, 63-59 or whatever the heck it is. And that's what I hope, is that it turns into that kind of a situation where everyone suddenly sits up and takes notice of, wow, this game's kind of wild and it's exciting and it's fun. And it goes down to the wire. Although maybe we'll be ripping our hair out if it does. But I do hope it's an exciting product that they put out on the field because the guys who put this bowl game together deserve it, and the players and coaches for both sides deserve it too. So again, Autonation Cure Bowl, Orlando, presented by Florida Hospital, will be Saturday, December the 17th at 5:30 p.m. In Camping World Stadium. In downtown Orlando, also televised on CBS Sports Network. So, all right, stick around when we get back here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll talk a little men's soccer. We got a new head coach for the men's soccer team. We'll talk about him in a little bit, and we'll also catch up with men's and women's basketball as they continue their hot starts to the 2016-2017 season. Stick around. We're back after this.
Hello, Night Nation. This is Andrew Fegley.
This is Trey Strelka with the UCF Nightline Podcast, the original, the #1 rated UCF sports podcast.
You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. On Twitter, it's UCF_Nightline and at www.ucfnightlinepodcast.com.
Be sure to subscribe to us as well on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube.
And when you get sick of listening to these guys, make sure you look us up.
Don't forget, that's the UCF Nightline Podcast. Go Knights!
Charge on.
Now, back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff, Sharon, Eric Lopez with you. We've talked about football. Now we're going to switch over to the other football. Men's soccer has their head coach. Taking over for Brian Cunningham will be Scott Calabrese. He comes up, no relation to Rob Calabrese, by the way. He's the former head coach of FIU. Spent the last 3 seasons there. Took them to the NCAA tournament in 2015. Also won Conference USA back in 2015 as well. Back-to-back Conference USA finalists. 2-time Coach of the Year. Comes in with an 85, 67, and 20 record. Prior to that, he was at East Tennessee State as a head coach. Took them to the 2010 Atlantic Sun Championship. They had 10 shutout wins. He was the South Region Coach of the Year. And ETSU made the 2013 NCAA tournament under his tutelage as well. He was an assistant previously at Clemson from 2003 to 2006, where the Tigers went to the College Cup, #1 nationally in 2005. Directed their academy. Also coached at North Carolina, 2000-2001, including a national championship, and actually coached as an assistant at Stetson way back, 1998-99. He's a Connecticut native. And interestingly enough, here's an interesting point about this, Eric Lopez. So he has a connection with Tiffany Robertson-Hidak. This is according to the release that UCF sent out. He actually coached Tiffany professionally as a member of the Carolina Courage coaching staff in 2002. That was in the old WUSA. He was an assistant coach. He helped guide the Courage. It says here he helped guide the Courage as an assistant coach to the Founders Cup that season. So graduate of Bryant College and a native of Newton, Connecticut. So yeah, Scott Calabrese takes over as UCF men's soccer coach. Pretty accomplished dude. You know, I mean, is this the kind of guy that Danny White was looking for, you think, Eric?
Absolutely. I mean, you just hit it in the head. Everywhere he has gone, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Okay, FIU, NCAA tournament. East Tennessee State, NCAA tournament. Clemson as an assistant, NCAA tournament. You get the gist. There's a pattern there.
Yeah.
And he's helped turn those programs, East Tennessee State and FIU programs around. And so, yeah, I think that's clearly invested. It was a pretty good process, quick process, maybe quicker than some of the other hires. And look, you can get talent at UCF. I think that's been proven. And now it's just about putting it all together. And the other aspect of it, Scott Calabrese he's used to being in this state. And that, I think
Florida guy, right?
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that check the box here, you know. And he's going to have more resources here than he had at FIU. And
easy for us to forget. You know, you mentioned this. Florida doesn't have men's soccer. Florida State does not have men's soccer. Miami does not have men's soccer. USF has men's soccer. We have men's soccer, and FIU has men's soccer. That's it. And FAU. But that's it. Like, I mean, you could easily make a case for UCF being the men's soccer power in the state of Florida.
Well, it's them and USF. I mean, you don't have to go far. I mean, that's your competition. I mean, that's, you know, especially we talked about the I-4 and the cup and the trophy. And I mean, in your own conference, that's, you know, the team. USF's had a very good men's program recently. So that's the team in the state. And that's the goal for Calabrese. You bring him in to get his team into the NCAA tournament on a frequent basis and kind of try to match the success that the women's side has had over the years, I think, right? I mean, that's the goal, I think, that Danny White. He's been consistent with this with every hire. It's about success. It's about being a top 25 program. It's about being good at everything. And that's I think it's not an accident at all. And I think he has a plan. He has a philosophy on a specific coaches when he looks into it. And to be successful. And, you know, I think, based on the, you know, check the boxes, I think this guy is more than qualified to be in. And should be fascinating to see how he does at UCF and how quickly can he get UCF back to the NCAA tournament, which they have not been since 2011.
Yeah. So a note on Coach Calabrese when he took over at ETSU in 2008. They had 2 6-win seasons. And then, starting in 2010, 15 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins, 10 wins. He goes to FIU, takes over team first year, goes 6-9-1. Then 12-7-1, 10-7-2. So quick turnarounds. He gets his people in, like I said, 5 NCAA tournament appearances as an assistant coach, 3 NCAA tournament appearances as a head coach, 3 conference tournament titles, 6 years with 10-plus wins, and helped actually I didn't mention this earlier. Sorry about that, Coach. He actually began the ETSU program in 2008. And he's got a national championship ring from North Carolina in 2001, so and 2 College Cup appearances. So, and I'm interested to see what he does with the youth program because he was very good at that at Clemson. I remember when I was up in Toccoa in Georgia. We were only about 35 miles away from Clemson. And there were kids running around northeastern Georgia, not far from the Clemson campus, that had that if they got into soccer, they went to the Clemson camp, and it was a massive camp. I remember. So, and he started that back in the late '90s. So, congrats to Coach Calabrese. Hopefully, we'll have him on the show here in the next few weeks once he gets in and gets settled, and we'll talk a little soccer with him. So, all right, let's talk a little hoops. The hot starts continue for both women's and men's basketball. Let's talk about the men, Eric, because they're coming off a big win. Went on the road. This is one of those games that we thought that it would be tough to get. They go up to Amherst, and they play at UMass. UMass is pretty good. And Nick Banyard hits a bizarre three-point shot with about a second to go. And the Knights beat UMass at UMass to go to 6-1. 65-62 is the final. Tank Affiani led the team with 24 points in this game. B.J. Taylor had 9. It was only 2 of 8 shooting. But, wow, what a win for UCF getting the W over UMass in a place that's, with 0.6 of a second to go off of an offensive rebound. Nick Banyard, who's been one hell of a find this year for UCF. Making a big shot. This was, I'll be honest with you, this one I wasn't expecting at all. And they pulled it off. What'd you think?
Amazing. Just amazing win.
The team it's just winning games, man.
Finding ways to win. You mentioned Banyard. He's been a nice surprise. Contributions. Big win on the road. I mean, what more can you say? I mean, this was a team that was 12-18 last year, and here they are, 6-1. They only lost to the defending national champions, Villanova. And you go into UMass. Not an easy place to play. A UMass team, by the way, that beat Temple.
Yeah.
Okay. A Temple team that's pretty good, who beat West Virginia recently and Florida State to win the tournament up at Barclay. So it's a heck of a win, man. I've enjoyed watching this team. I mean, they're exciting. They're
really
fun.
have been sound on both sides, offense and defense. They seem it's a team. I was expecting there to be a lot of growing pains under a new head coach. They've looked like they've been playing this system, and Johnny Dawkins has been here for 10 years. That's what amazes me about this.
They're bought in. They're bought in, and I think there's a discipline there. Johnny Dawkins said before the season it's about playing for the team, for the school. Have some pride. There's a family, I think, kind of environment there, and they believe. There's a belief there. And they're gaining confidence by each game they play. They're getting more and more confidence. And, they got Maryland Eastern Shore coming up Saturday at home.
Yep.
Got it. It's a big time. Don't have a letdown, right? That's going to be the challenge. Don't have a letdown.
Then they got Penn right after that 2 days later.
A good Penn team, Ivy League school. That'll be a disciplined basketball team, Penn. So that's a very interesting home game. Very good challenge. But this team has responded, and man, it's exciting. It's just, it really blows my mind away. You're right. I would never have thought they would be playing this well this quickly.
Yeah.
6-1
overall record right now.
Yeah. I mean, They got a nice stretch here coming up. You got Miami of Ohio coming up.
Yep.
Also at home. So you got a home stretch here, Jeff, that again, build huge momentum before that conference opener on New Year's Eve against Temple.
For the next 5 at home. The only one that's going to be a toughie up in D.C. against George Washington on Thursday, December 15th.
A good basketball team. Very good basketball team there.
Yeah, so in the span of 5 days, you got 3 games coming up. Eastern Shore, Penn, and then at GW.
Well,
and then Miami of Ohio on Wednesday, December 18th.
The one thing I'm concerned about that stretch, that might be where your lack of depth, that'll be interesting to how they handle that. Now, to their credit, when they played up at Charleston, they played 3 games in, 4 days, and, didn't seem to affect them. And that was without A.J. Davis, by the way.
Right.
Who's back, by the way. So, but that'll be a challenge. Maryland Eastern Shore, then the quick turnaround against Penn, and then go up there against GW. That will be an interesting week to see how they kind of handle that. And so it'll be interesting to see how this team handles that little kind of period there with Maryland Eastern Shore, and then you got the quick turnaround with Penn, and then you got to go to GW. So, we'll see what happens. But, man, it's exciting, and how can you not be excited about where this program is with Johnny Dawkins, considering, Jeff, these are not even his players yet, right?
I know. He's gotten the transfers that have come in, but I'm really been impressed with the players about how they have actually come in and really bought into this. So speaking of players that have been buying in, how about the women's team, man? Speaking of clubs that just continue to win, they are now 7-2. They throttled Bethune-Cookman. I was at that game, by the way. Beat them by 27 points. Jumped out all over them in the first quarter. They were up 26-8 after the first, and they just kind of held them at bay. I thought actually things got a little bit sloppy later on, but they've been playing some really impressive defense so far to this point for Coach Abe. Leaders for this game: Nyla Schuler had 13 points. She had some sharp shooting early in the game too. Zy Lewis finished with 15 coming off the bench. Aaliyah Gregory got into the act. Fifi Endure had 11 points in this game. I've really been impressed with the way this team has worked and has structured itself. Gregory, it's been Gregory, Lewis, Massey, Endure, and Schuler, and then coming off the bench, they've also had they've actually had some really good contributions from KK Wright, even though she's been a starter for much of the game. And also they've had some good contributions as well from Tolo McCory, too. She started every game, and she's just rebounding out of her mind right now. But wow, I mean, this team under Coach Abe now 7-2. And they've been unselfish on offense, almost to a fault sometimes. A couple times the way I've seen them play, they're kind of a little bit worried about, their passes kind of have a little bit of a question mark at the end of them, like, am I making the right pass doing this? And but the defense has been really great so far this season. I'm taking a look at the numbers from the Bethune game, and like I said, they jumped out to that quick 26-8 lead, and overall, forcing the turnovers against Bethune, 23 turnovers for Bethune-Cookman in this game, and that's a ton. And you're going to look at that box when you say, well, UCF had 27 turnovers of their own. It was really sloppy towards the end. I think they were trying to run some new stuff and trying to expand the playbook a little bit, and it just wasn't working on occasion. But when they got serious about it, man, this team looked really good. And the other thing is, Coach Abe was right. They don't shoot a lot of threes. Zy Lewis shot 6 threes of her own. She made 2 of them, but this team does not shoot a lot of threes. But they did shoot 50% for the game and held Bethune to 32. So UCF now 7-2, and I think a rather impressive 7-2 as they get ready for Gardner-Webb on Saturday, December the 10th at home. And they got Georgia Southern a week later, December the 17th. That's the night of the bowl game. Back home for 2 more non-conference games against teams that are traveling a long way. They've got Omaha on Tuesday the 20th, followed by UC Davis coming all the way across country from California on December the 28th in preparation for Sunday's matchup with UConn on New Year's Day, Sunday, January 1st at CFE Arena. So,
wow.
So yeah, better rack up the wins while you can before UConn comes to town. You got to test that out. But four non-conference games to go, 3 at home. They got a good chance to get to the 10-win mark before New Year's Day.
Well, that would be huge success. And you look at the 2 losses. Obviously, Virginia Tech was an ACC team, came down to the last possession.
Heartbreaker.
And the Buffalo game, it looked like they were going to get, it was going to get away from them. And they made a furious run there at the end and almost took that game against Buffalo. Yeah. So this team plays hard for a full game. And you brought up they don't shoot a lot of threes. I actually like that. I think one of the issues I've had at times seeing women's basketball, some teams just take, jack up threes when it's really not their game. And I think this team tries to take high-quality shot selections. And I like the fact, Jeff, that they try to go inside. Take advantage. Go inside to Fifi. Go inside and try to get some points in the paint.
They've been excellent in the paint. Jocelyn Massey, I think, has been a real unsung hero for this team too.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the guards. They pressure the hoop. They don't sit back and settle for the long jumpers. I've been impressed with the big guards who have who take the ball to the hoop, and the point guards have been doing great at creating, and that has done That's done wonders for them. The few 3-point looks that they do take, they're open looks because of the drive and kick action.
Yes. So, I think you're pleased. Coach Abe's intense. I think you're right. The offense is still kind of they're thinking of what they need to do instead of reacting.
Yeah.
Because I think they're still learning. And you hope that when you get in the conference play, these players have kind of more comfortable in the offense. But you're right, their defense has picked up, kind of carried them to this point. And I think that's the thing that I'm pleased with is the high quality of shot selection, percentage play, and the turnovers. They've kept it when they've won. They've kept it a pretty decent amount. So, very positives. And again, Danny White. There's 2 hires right there, right?
Yeah.
Coach Abe
and Johnny Dawkins.
Yeah, I mean that's what Danny White's forte was, basketball, and so far so good.
So upcoming, we mentioned the upcoming schedule. By the way, note on that first quarter, they shot 73% from the floor against Bethune, including 4 of 5 from 3-point range. So there's your good looks right there. So,
yep.
So look at basketball, look at women's basketball. It's shaping up to be a really good start for both basketball squads.
That's a heck of what a way to, when you look at that end of the year, Saturday, December 31st, Temple, conference opener. Temple's a good team. We talked about that earlier. And then UConn on New Year's Day. I wish the league would have maybe scheduled that, maybe not on that day. It's a tricky date because UConn, right? That's the game that's going to get the most fans probably attended, right?
It should. I mean, number one in the country. I mean, it's UConn. It's the dream team. It's the 96 Bulls. It's
I just wonder, this will be I believe it's their 3rd trip. They've played, believe it or not, on a New Year's Day. It's funny. I think this is the 2nd time UConn's played at UCF on a New Year's Day. Because I'm pretty sure like a couple of years ago they played on New Year's Day when I was at a bowl game. I know the most recent trip that UConn had was on a midweek. So do you think they're better off playing that on New Year's Day on Sunday? Would they have been better off playing that on a midweek or later in the year? I mean, that's an interesting. What do you have an opinion on that?
Doing that is to stick with that sort of Saturday. That game's a Sunday because then they go to the Saturday Wednesday thing,
right?
Now,
look. To be fair,
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say. Now, keep in mind. That Sunday, the NFL is actually playing. There's no bowl games. It's an NFL Sunday. And a lot of times during the year, women's basketball in January is scheduled on Sunday. There's a lot of games on TV and stuff on Sunday as quote-unquote counter-programming to the NFL.
Yeah, this game's going to be, by the way, televised on SNY and on ESPN3. So
right. So, that's kind of an alternative programming. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, do you like the fact that's on a Sunday, New Year's Day? And I mean, if you want to expand that to the men's basketball opener being on New Year's Eve on a 4:00, which I believe that will be on one of the ESPN family networks as well. Television plays a role in that. Do you think it hurts attendance? Do you think it enhances it? Does it not make it? It's kind of overblown. What's kind of what your reaction to that?
I think it depends on how you promote it. I think that the New Year's Eve game against Temple for the men's team, I think is going to be a tougher draw at 4:00 than the UConn game on January the 1st because, like you said, it's going to be an NFL Sunday. You're going to be competing with that anyway. The bowl games, I think they moved the bowl games to New Year's Eve, right? That Saturday. So
the playoffs are New Year's Eve, yeah.
Right. So, when you're talking about women's basketball, you're talking about a very dedicated audience. So they're going to tune in for that game, and the player and the folks who are there for UCF, the fans that are going to be there. I mean, they're going to be there to see UConn, and to just based on the curiosity of it. I actually like having it sort of on that holiday day.
I do agree that the fans that are going to go see UConn are going to still go see UConn. They're not really. You're right. The women's basketball fans are accustomed to this going up against the NFL. You're right.
The men's people from around the state of Florida actually, I think, coming to see this game because UConn's coming to town, and they're going to be interested. And it's not just UConn alumni either. Anybody who's got any kind of a vested interest in women's basketball, they're going to want to see the Huskies.
You're right. I agree with that. You're right. The men's has a tougher slate because you're right. That's going to be the same day as the college football playoff, and that day. The Buffalo Wild Wings Citrus Bowl will be played between LSU and Louisville in the same town. So there's actually a lot going on, not to mention the fact people that just make New Year's Eve plans and stuff. That's a tough one. That's a very tough one. And you're right. The playoffs will be going on. Alabama will be playing Washington at 3:00 around that.
Now, for that.
So, but the good news is, it's not a Florida team. In other words, like a couple years ago, Florida State, like if Florida State was playing in that playoff game or a Florida, that would even maybe take away some of that casual fan that might go to the game. You know what I mean? Because, they might, my team's not in it, so I'll just go see this. So it's tough. Obviously, this year, the good news is, like I said, the 31st is a Saturday. So it'll be interesting with this year, New Year's Eve being on a Saturday and, New Year's Day on a Sunday because, and I think you would agree with me, and these are big games, especially the UConn game is a big game for the women's program. Forget on the court and result, as you know, and a lot of times there's certain games that will bring out fans for the first time to your product. There'll be a lot of people that go to that UConn game that probably haven't been to a UCF women's basketball game, and I've seen this in other sports where when UCF, for example, plays a Florida or plays in Alabama, that you see people that come to watch softball for the first time, and you hope that you give them a reason to come back, that they have a good time and they see the product and they want to come back. And I know with softball, we've benefited from that. And I think that's why that UConn game is big. So I just wondered, from a New Year's Day, if that helps or hurts, because those are big games. Forget the score and what happens. Your goal is to attract people that are going to go there to want to come back. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole point. And if they can put up a really good fight against UConn,
sure.
I mean, it's going to be tough because UConn's UConn.
That's the thing that's the hard thing about it. UConn everybody struggles to keep it competitive against them. So I don't know if that's a game that you can judge the team based on that because everybody struggles again. If that's what kind of happens. Yes, obviously if they keep it competitive, it's almost a positive, right? They're excited at that point. So, but people will want to see greatness and they want to see great teams. But you want to take advantage. What you want is to show them that you've got a good product too, that you should come back to see us as well. And so that's a fascinating weekend for sure. I'm intrigued by that. Are you planning on, because I know you've been going to women's basketball games. You've done the PA. I don't know.
I believe I'm scheduled to do PA that day for that game.
Wow.
I'll have the best seat in the house to watch the UConn.
Is that like the biggest game of your career from a PA standpoint?
Yeah, I think so. I've done
not to put any pressure
matches, but yeah, thanks. But yeah, that's the biggest game I think I've done yet. And wow, UConn, January 1st. So I know I'm looking forward to it. I better not mess this up in front of Coach Oriema.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got that name down? Okay, good.
Yeah, let alone the folks at UCF who are actually in charge of my job there. So, but
sure. By the way, Nikisha Sales, assistant at UCF.
Nikisha Sales, that's right.
All right, former UConn player. So.
Yeah, and one of the greats at UConn too. One of the great players that Gino ever had.
And that's going to be a storyline, I'm sure. As we get closer to that game, I'm sure that'll be a storyline, and that'll be talked about, I think, leading into that game and afterwards.
Cool. All right, so let's wrap things up. Oh, I wanted to pass along a little nice little note here, having to do with volleyball. How about Tanya Jarvis? That name sounds familiar to you. It should. She was a UCF volleyball player back when we were students, Eric, 2001 to 2005. Tanya is now the head coach at Bishop Moore. They just won the state title again, back-to-back. They've won 3 out of 4. And Tanya was just named the State High School Volleyball Coach of the Year. And a well-deserved award for Tanya. So I wanted to give her a quick shout-out. Congratulations. We're hoping to have her on the show. Hey, I know this is going to be breaking news to Tanya, but we're gonna see if we can try and get her on the show at some point to talk about her UCF career and her coaching.
Did you broadcast her games? Did you broadcast her games back then?
Oh yeah, I did a ton of games with Tanya, where Tanya Jarvis was playing back when, because we were in the same years. We were both freshmen in the fall of 2001 when she was playing for Meg Collado. So, and then we graduated, or I graduated the same year that she had her last year, was 04, 05. So yeah, I've seen 4 years worth of Tanya Jarvis playing volleyball for UCF. So I'm
Hall
really
of Fame type, right? Hall of Fame type player.
I think she should be. She was a fantastic player at UCF, and one of the most talented players that Meg Collado ever brought in. Certainly one of the most talented players of the Atlantic Sun era when we were there. And and I'll tell you something. What a great! I mean, to coach Bishop Moore, to coach any school, to 3 state titles in 4 years. She's won a few of them. She's won at least 2 of them, I think, if I'm not mistaken, on the UCF volleyball venue floor, the old floor where she used to play. And that's special. And really happy for her. Congrats, Tanya. Really happy for it. What a great coach, man. So cheers to her. 3 state championships at Bishop Moore. That's nothing to sneeze at, man. That's hard.
It's unbelievable. You're right, and we definitely got to get her on. That'll be fun. That'll be a tremendous success there. Maybe the top coach in the state. That's now been proven there, winning that award, and so that's tremendous.
So happy for Tanya. Congratulations, Tanya. All right. So what are you looking forward to this week, Eric?
Well, I'm looking forward to kind of relax. It's kind of weird. It's kind of a relaxation type of weekend, but you got basketball double dip back on Saturday. So, seeing if both teams can keep the momentum going and just getting ready for that bowl game, really, right? I mean, that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, we're going to be prepping for the bowl game, which again is on Saturday, December the 17th. So our next show will basically be our big bowl preview show.
But don't worry, we will have coverage from the bowl game, content from the bowl game. So just because we won't do the normal pocket, we're kind of working on having a kind of a special bowl game stuff that week that you'll enjoy.
Yeah, we're kind of pulling a little. We're one way or the other. We're gonna have a post bowl game podcast. It may be that night. It may be a little bit after that. I don't know just yet, but we'll figure out something there. We'll make sure that you guys have all the plans after our next show next week. And then it's Christmas time. Then it's the College Bowl season continues, and then it's New Year's. I'll have our next show ready to go Wednesday, December. We'll probably record it Wednesday, December 28th, leading to the 29th. So be on the lookout for that, and follow us at UCF_Banneret. Follow me at Jeff_Sharon. Follow Elo at Eric Lopez Elo. So, all right, man. So it's been good. Looking forward to this bowl game, Eric. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there. It's going to be fun.
Looking forward. It'll be a lot of fun, and just keep it here, and we'll have all the latest and a lot of good things coming up. So, it's going to be a fun time of year.
All right. So special thanks to you once again, Eric.
Always a pleasure, Jeffrey.
And special thanks to Alan Gooch, the CEO of the Cure Bowl and Executive Director of the Orlando Sports Foundation, for coming on our show today as well. You can follow the Autonation Cure Bowl at Cure Bowl on Twitter. Don't forget to follow us, of course, like I said, UCF_Banneret, also on Twitter and on Facebook at Black Gold Banneret. And follow this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and SoundCloud. Always good to talk to you, Eric. Have a good one, man.
You too, buddy.
All right. Thank you for listening once again. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll catch you next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.